Hey guys, Mr. Jenkins here. Gonna go over the next lesson in chapter 2, which is 2.5, literal equations and formulas. This is a lesson that kids just tend to have trouble with because it is not as concrete as solving just a regular linear equation like we've been doing, but it's more abstract, okay? And you really have to have good fundamentals to be able to do this. So this is going to be a test of your fundamentals. All right, that being said, we will go ahead and get to it. Our learning target is basically I can rewrite and use literal equations and formulas. So, you know, what is a literal equation? It's an equation like, you know, it might be the formula for, you know, to get from degrees Celsius to degrees Fahrenheit or something. It's an equation or a formula that really tells us something. Usually it has, or a lot of times it has only variables in it. So anyways, that's just some of why it can be confusing. So anyways, let's go ahead and get to the examples. I think that's the best way to kind of trudge our way through it and figure it out together. 1a says the equation 10x plus 5y equals 80, where x is the number of pizzas and y is the number of sandwiches, models the problem and solve it. If you want to look at the actual diagrams, you know, you can look there on page 189 in your textbook. I don't think that's necessary though. Basically, it just is $10 per pizza, $5 per sandwich, and then we have $80 to spend. And then it wants to know how many sandwiches can you buy? How many sandwiches can you buy? That should say if you buy 3 pizzas, and then what if you buy 6? So one way to do that would just be to go like this. We could go to answer the first one, we could say 10 times 3, because 3 pizzas plus 5 times y equals 80, and then we could just solve for y. That would be fine. But we're going to go ahead and take a different kind of approach here and go ahead and solve for a number of sandwiches. Okay, so it asks us how many sandwiches we can buy in both cases. So we're going to take this equation and we're going to solve it for number of sandwiches. Okay, so y is number of sandwiches. So we're going to solve for y. And we'll do some of this solving for y, especially, again, when we get into graphing linear equations and stuff. All right, so I'm just going to recopy the equation. 10x plus 5y equals 80. And so we're gonna think how can we solve for y? So the first thing we'd want to do is we're going to want to move the 10x from the left side to the right side. Remember, addition or subtraction always comes first. So we're moving that over, right? So that's a plus 10x. So to move it, we do minus 10x to both sides. Okay, now here's the first part where you're going to be confused. Usually when we do minus something, we actually take 10 away from something, all right? But 80 and minus 10x are not like terms. So the way you write that out is just as 2 separate terms. So what that leaves me with is 5y equals negative 10x plus 80, or 80 minus 10x, either way. And then at that point, we're ready to go ahead and divide both sides by the coefficient, in this case 5. So that's going to give me 1y, or y, equals negative 10 over 5 is negative 2, so negative 2x. And then 80 over 5 is plus 16. Okay? So now that I have that, once I plug in for x, it's going to give me my answer directly instead of subbing in and solving, okay, because we've already done that work. So if x equals 3, using our new equation, if x equals 3, then y equals negative 2 times 3 plus 16. So that'd be negative 6 plus 16 is 10. You can just punch that into your calculator. So for the first question, that would be 10 sandwiches. All right, and then for the second part, what if we bought 6 pizzas? I mark that out, I should say 10 sandwiches. So if x equals 6, then y equals -2 times 6 plus 16. So now we have -12 plus 16, that'd be 4. So second part would be 4. All right, so kind of spent a lot of time on this one, and just to show you that what we got is correct, I'm going to solve this one real quick. So you know, this is 30. So minus 30 to both sides is going to give me 5y equals 50. And then divide both sides by 5, and we get y equals 10, which we know is the correct answer, right? So solving for a certain variable can just give you, it can just save you some work on the back end, okay? So now that we've seen that, I'm going to go through the rest of these a little bit quicker, and I'll solve pretty much all of them. But remember, if I'm going too quick for you on a video, you can always pause, rewind, etc. Okay? On B, we want to solve the equation -2x plus 5y equals 12 for y. All right, so my first move is we're going to move -2x over to the right side. So that's going to be plus 2x on both sides. And that's going to leave me with 5y equals positive 2x, or 2x plus 12. Then we're ready to go ahead and divide everything by 5. All right, so in this case, obviously 5 doesn't go into 2, 5 doesn't go into 12, so you can write your answer out just like pretty much what you see there, 2x plus 12 over 5. Or you could just say 2x over 5, or 2/5 x plus 12 over 5. Okay, so I would say simplest way to write it would just be like that. And there's nothing that really simplifies, okay? Next one says solve this equation for B. All right, so this one is a little bit different. As you can see, let me carve out some space here. As you can see, we have multiple b's, all right? So we're going to kind of use the distributive property in reverse here. This is one that will confuse you if you don't watch the video, if you get it on the home, okay? So I can, in other words, another way to say that is I can factor out a b, right? So I'm going to rewrite the left side as b times the quantity a minus 2. Now, have I changed anything? No, I just wrote it in a different way, right? Because if I distributed the b, this would be a times b, or ab, and then this would be -2 times b, or minus 2b. Okay, so I just wrote it in a different way that now I can actually isolate b. Okay, so at that point we can just treat the quantity a minus 2 just like we would a coefficient, because this is b times a minus 2. So we're just going to divide both sides by a minus 2. And that's going to give me my final answer of b equals, let's see, how do we want to write this? Let's say -10 over a minus 2. Okay, so you can put the negative there, or you can just keep it with the 10, would be fine as well. All right. Another bad thing about these, or another complicated thing about these, is you can't really plug anything back in to check your answer unless you get real creative. But you know. Also on the notes, there's some stuff about restrictions. Don't really worry too much about that. Like it'll say like a can't be 2, but like I said, don't worry about that right now. All right, next one wants us to solve for x, this equation right here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is move the constant over. The constant in this case is +9. I'm doing -9 to both sides. And so on the left side, that just leaves me with the quantity x plus y over z by itself. And on the right side, it leaves me with 8. All right, then I want to get rid of the divided by z. Remember, there are kind of an imaginary set of parentheses around here. So we want to actually multiply or divide first here. So after that, that's going to give me x plus y equals 8z. And then now finally, we're ready to go ahead and move the plus y. So that's minus y to both sides. And that is going to give me x equals 8z minus y, or negative y plus 8z. All right, so just another one down here. Like I said, I want to kind of work through pretty much all these just because they can be difficult. So it says, what equation do you get when you solve ax minus bx equals c for x? So again, this is kind of like the example I did up there. So another distributive property example. So we want to go ahead and factor out an x. So rewrite the left side as x times the quantity a minus b equals c. Now we want to go ahead and just get rid of that times a minus b. So we're dividing everything by a minus b. So then we get x equals c over the quantity a minus b. And like I said, don't worry about the restriction on that one. Okay, moving on. We want to solve the example B and C both for x. Okay, so looking at this one, the first thing I would do to accomplish that here is move over the plus r. That's minus r to both sides. Excuse me. So that's going to give me then negative r minus, write that in black. Okay, negative r minus t equals px. Now I can divide everything by p. And that's going to give me negative r minus t over p equals x. Now MathXL might want you to simplify that as, well, actually they would probably take that. That'd be just fine. Okay, so the only other way you could really write that is just to factor out the negative. So you could also say x equals, sorry, that's my lunch bell. Turn that off real quick. The only other way you could write that is x equals negative times the quantity r plus t or t plus r. I don't think you need to worry about doing that though. But if so, that might be something you look out for on MathXL. All right, then looking at C, we also want to solve this for x. So step one is get rid of divided by b. So that's times b to both sides. And that's going to give me by equals x minus b. And now we want to move the minus b. That's plus b to both sides. And that's going to give me by plus v equals x. So like I said, this can be pretty abstract, but it's just a really good test of your fundamentals. All right, and then D is going to be really tricky because you don't really know much about this formula. This is called point slope form. We'll cover that later this year, but anyways, just another example for you. Actually, you know what? I might just skip that one. Well, I'll show it real quick, just because. But if we want to solve that for m, here's what we would get. I guess actually it's a pretty easy one. So we would just divide both sides by x minus x1. So that would give you y minus y1 over x minus x1 equals n. And you might actually recognize that as the slope formula, because that is, well, and the slope formula we say y2 minus y1 equals x2 minus x1, but same kind of deal here, okay? So last couple here are kind of more real world problems. So this says a triangle has a height of 4 feet, an area of 32 square feet. What's the length of its base? All right, so what we're going to do first to kind of continue with what we've been doing is we're going to take the area of a triangle, because that's what they give us. Area of a triangle is A equals half times base times height. And then we're going to solve that for, it says what's the length of the base, so we're going to solve for B. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and, so B is being multiplied by half and by H, right? So I'm kind of dividing both sides by half H here. And this one can be a little bit tricky, but what we have to remember there is divided by 1/2 is the same thing as times 2. Okay, so so what we get on the other side is 2a over h. All right, so that is my base kind of formula. So we'll go ahead and sub in 32 for area and 4 for height, and we'll see if we get an answer that makes sense. So B equals 2 times 32 over 4. And obviously you could just punch that in. Since I don't have a calculator pulled up, I'm going to make life a little easier. Divide that by 4, get 1. Divide that by 4, get 8. So that's really just equal to 2 times 8, which is 16. So that would be 16 feet. Okay, now we think, does my answer make sense? So if I went back to my original formula and said half times 16 times 4, do I get 32? And the answer there is yes. Half times 16 times 4 is 32, so it works out. All right, looking at the next one. Rectangle has a perimeter, so perimeter of a rectangle, first of all, is 2L plus 2W. What's the length? So we're going to solve for L. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and move the plus 2W over. So that's minus 2W to both sides. So that gives me P minus 2W equals 2L. And now we're ready to divide everything by 2. And so that's going to give me, let's go ahead. So you could do P minus 2W over 2, but I'm going to go ahead and simplify that because 2 goes into 2. So I'm going to split those into 2 different terms and say P over 2 equals negative 2W over 2 would just be, equals minus, getting ahead of myself. Well, try that one last time. So we're going to go P minus 2, P over 2 minus 1W minus W equals L. P over 2 minus W equals L. So let's see if all this works. So we're going to sub into our new and improved find the length formula. We're going to sub 112 for perimeter, and we're going to sub 13 for W. Okay, so that would give me L equals 112 over 2 minus 13. All right, so 112 over 2, that would be what, 256. So 56 minus 13 would be 43. All right, so that'd be 43 centimeters. And, let's just go back to the original and see if it works, right? So 2 times 43 would be 86. And then 2 times 13 would be 26. Add up 86 and 26 and you get 112. So it does work. All right, and then the last one, I know I've kind of written over it, but it says we use the formula A equals H over N to find batting average. Where A, batting average is A. I have a batter who has H hits, so H is hits, and N is number of at-bats. Solve the formula for H, so we'll go ahead and do that. I'm just going to recopy the given formula, A equals H over N. And it says solve for H, so all we need to do is get rid of the divided by N, so multiply by N on both sides, and that's just going to give me that A times N or N times A, I usually just go in alphabetical order there, is equal to H. So hits equals at-bats times, I'm trying to remember what everything means. Sorry, hits equals average times number of at-bats. So if a batter has a batting average of 290, that means 29%, by the way. So 290 is going to go for average. And 300 at-bats, so remember that's N. How many hits does he have? So H equals 0.29 times 300. And I won't be able to do that in my head, so I'm going to peek at my notes here. You could just type it in. That would be 87. 87. And on a word problem, you always just want to put a label on it. So that'd be 87 hits. But like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a struggle, probably for a lot of you, but it's a great lesson to make sure that your fundamentals are good when solving equations. So watch the video as many times as you need. You have notes as well. And, just rise to the challenge, I would say. And I'm sure you guys will have questions, so don't be afraid to ask. And thanks for your time.